Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Right? Good. I'm so glad you're all here, and I'm so glad you're helping me check off a checkbox item on my list of Speak in India.
He's based in Singapore.
Yes. First chance. Especially with such distinguished panel, it's really great. So we are going to talk today about how to choose a GDS and decode NDC. So we'll tell you about us in a moment, but I want to know about those of you that are here, and hopefully more are joining. This is great. Hands up if you're with a travel agency or a TMC. Yeah, a lot of you, right? Hands up if you are with a DMC. Anybody DMC? No? Airline? Hotel provider? Okay. And perhaps media? Anybody with the media, travel media? Okay. And those of you who didn't raise your hands, tell me some of your industry sectors. Congratulations. And as we say in French, bon courage. Good courage. Anybody else with a different technology, like a GDS or a expense management? Very important technology. Good. All right. So our panel is also in technology, as you can imagine. So I go here, and I go here. I'm just getting used to the clicker here. So first we have Martin Herbert from Travelport. And Travelport, of course, is a GDS technology that is used all around the world. In working with corporate clients, we have corporate clients using Travelport in every country where they operate, and some others using it just regionally. So, of course, for those of you who are not technology experts, GDS hosts airlines, but also distributes content of hotels and cruises and car hires and packages and so much content that it would make your head spin if you knew all the things that a GDS could sell you and all the capabilities of it. Mr. Herbert has been with Travelport a while, but also has been with other organizations and has been in the industry how long?
All my working life, over 20 years.
Over 20 years. We're not allowed to say how long because you might know how old he is at that point, right? And we also have Sandeep Shastri from Sabre, who's also been with one of the world's largest travel agencies and has been with other GDS and so on, and knows his technology in an excellent way. So we're very fortunate to have you. How many years have you been in this industry?
I've been in travel for about 14 years. I started my career in banking and then moved into, can you hear me?
For how long?
I've been in the travel industry for about over 14 years.
Okay, very good. Maybe move your mic up because it's not catching you. So you can see we're very fortunate to have a very distinguished panel. Then lastly, there's me, and I'm Jerome Grant Kaplan, and I am from Procuragents. We are procurement buyers of travel and meetings. So we help large corporations to negotiate their way through travel and to find the right travel agency, find the right technology, the right airlines, hotels, and so on, and to negotiate the contracts. So distribution is very important to us. And we're going to talk a lot today about GDS distribution and travel distribution in general, so that you can be a better buyer of it yourself, especially if you're a travel agency. And we find that content is absolutely king, but you can get it from so many places that you have to make decisions, and you have to decide how to select that technology. Well, GDS being the most global of all of it, we have GDS speakers today, but we also need to talk about NDC. Who here feels that they know NDC very well? You are in good company with the rest of the travel world in that nobody raised their hand. It's a very difficult topic, but we're going to try and make it simple. We'll go really quickly here because we don't have a lot of time. So if you want the slides from this presentation, put on the back of your card PPT, PowerPoint, and then hand it to me at the end of the session, and I'll email it out to you. So NDC, of course, if we wanted to make it in 2 words, it is a language standard. So Hyatt Hotels talks in its way to the travel world, British Airways talks in its way to the travel world, and each provider has their own specific things. Some have a superior room and a deluxe room and a category 1 and a category 2, or some have business first and some have business class. Well, it's the same thing, it's J class or C class, but the language might be different, and they may use J class and C class at British Airways, and they may use A class and B class at another airline, and so on. So the language standard of NDC is meant to get that all together and make it a simpler way to deal directly with the provider and not go through the GDS. But what's life without a GDS? You have to have this discussion internally as to, do we pursue NDC and all of the integration it means, or do we pursue GDS as our prime and go NDC as a secondary strategy? So it's an example of being in India here. If you go up to the average person on the street, you cannot speak German to them. You need to speak Hindi or English, right? Or their dialect of their region. And this NDC is meant to put it all together. And they each have their own language. So British Airways may speak English, and even though Kenya is an English-speaking country, and generally Kenya might speak Swahili, right? It might be a total different way, and you need to bring them all into one place when they speak different languages and make that one central thing. So the GDS means bringing it all together because they already have it managed together. NDC means fragmentation, but bringing it in together in another way. So the example of content being king means that, for example, an airline might have different content levels, more and less international, and these numbers are just sample numbers, but that makes it more complex than if it was all the same type of volume and they were competing just the 2 of them and there was no other competitors. So the process worked very well with NDC. It was very easy to start getting things together. The APIs, so the application programming interfaces, were very, very good thing because people offered an API and you could connect your NDC capabilities into that API. But of course you have to connect to 8 or 20 or 50 different APIs, so it gets confusing when we want to collect the data. But it's a good way to integrate disparate languages. And there were other perspectives that worked out very well, and bringing things together was able to be done. It is still, of course, just in its baby stages, so it is something that is not worldwide, and it is not every supplier that you will use has access into NDC, and yet some combine the access. The things that had room for improvement were the documentation. So when everybody is speaking a different language and you're trying to put it together, how do you collect the data? When I make a booking with Air Canada or with somebody else that is a direct connect, I'm going to get just a passive segment in my GDS. Well, I can't service that. I can't document what happened, what did I buy, as easily as if I buy it directly through the GDS. But I also get different benefits with that, such as Siemens is a well-known case where they directly negotiated with Lufthansa, who requires direct connects, and NDC, and they were able to get free lounge access for their travelers, and meals that would normally be paid for, they got those included, and check-in and so on. So that became part of their contract if you use GDS, if you use NDC connection to Lufthansa. It's a very well-known capability. But then there were some incomplete scenarios that with other providers that had to be solved, where if you make a direct connect and then you get a passive in the GDS, passive segment, or they call it a ghost segment in Amadeus, is how do I service that booking now? So if you're a travel agency, this will become a challenge for you in going NDC, but you will figure it out. And then some of the content is hard to find in NDC, whereas in GDS, it can be very easy. And some GDSs actually have some of the same capabilities as the GDS, as the NDC. So also instability is an issue. When you're relying on many, many, many systems to talk to each other, you're going to have weakness that's natural. So one supplier has a system that's not connected very well to where you're getting their data and their inventory, and another system has a very strong one, so it's never down. So maybe a certain hotel chain is weaker and has less communication capability, and you lose access to them through NDC. Whereas somebody stronger, you would have more constant access and less system outage. And then the last one is user experience integration, which is a real challenge. And it means that the mid-office might not be able to quality control an NDC reservation as easy as, because it's passive, as well as it can quality control or act on a GDS reservation because it's an active reservation and it's serviceable from within the system. So that becomes another challenge for you as a travel agency provider. And if you're wondering if this is for you, our firm has access to a calculator that does this math. And we can talk offline about it, but I didn't want to bring that in because we have very short time with our experts. But I do want to open this up to some questions. I have a few questions for our panel, but I also want your questions, and all you have to do is raise your finger, and hopefully I'll make eye contact with you and see you and come get your question. Do we have somebody running a microphone for questions? Good, so please wait for the microphone to get to you when the questions come up. And then if you want these slides, mark PPT on the back of your card and I'll give them to you afterwards. Very well, so my panel, here's the tough part for you. What are 4 things to consider when we're choosing the right technology for our travel agency or corporation or whomever? And Sandeep, I'm going to start with you because I know you have a good perspective on this as well as Martin does.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear him? If not, there you go.
Thank you. That's a great question. So when you look at a technology partner for a travel business, you would look for someone who has great experience in a great track record and a great experience in the travel technology sort of arena, not only historically in terms of the innovations that they've done, but also in terms of the future direction that they'd like to sort of discuss and talk about. You'd also look at someone who's got a commitment towards helping you solve for your specific technology requirements. So flexibility in terms of how they approach a solution and deliver on that. You'd want, in today's world, you'd want a connected partner. You want someone who can access content. And in fact, we just saw examples of how content from an airline could be accessed through different sources. You might have similar content challenges on the hotel side. So you want a connected partner who can bring all of those expertise together. And then finally, I think the most important of all of that is having a trusted advisor. Someone whom you can talk to in terms of your concerns, your challenges, and someone who's willing to listen and deliver according to what you really want to achieve in the market.
Excellent.
Does that address some of the areas that you're...
It does.
Thank you.
I think, and that might generate some questions for those of you who are travel agencies. So if you have them, this is your chance to ask them. Don't be shy because it won't get your question answered, right? Okay, so please tell us your perspective.
So all very good points raised by Sandeep there in terms of selecting a technology partner. I think just to enhance that a little bit specifically for our industry and for the traveller sector, I think geography is a key factor, understanding that what is in your geography in terms of how you're going to be supported and how you're going to interact and the people you interact with, to ensure that you have timely responses and support would be great. And then back to your point in the early presentation, Grant, certainly content. Content is king, making sure that the content that you need is there in the system to support you and support your business. So really ensuring that that's covered as well. And that's very specific to the travel industry, I know, but certainly very valid.
Yeah, I think content is a very big consideration for you, is what content do you need for your clients or for the clients you wish to get? So if you are 85% leisure and you're looking to go more corporate, do you want better access to corporate fairs and merchandising? How do you want to sell merchandising to raise the average money you are taking in per ticket? Do you want to add in seat revenues or baggage revenues and so on? And how will that play with your contract with the airlines? Just to go on the air side. And hotel, of course, is even another story. For us, the quandary is the booking tool, the online booking tool. Can we get all the content to be in the online booking tool so that our corporate travelers in our different corporations that we help buy travel will have access to what we agreed to buy from our providers? So that's an issue. Now, tell me, Martin, so how would selecting a GDS change regarding all that?
Well, in terms of the airline contracts that we have,
Is this up? Well, they're trying to talk to IT. Can you make his microphone work? Is it on? No, make it green. Here he comes. And that's not working either.
Okay, so we've clearly got some technical challenges on here, but the landscape for distribution is changing constantly, and it is all around about the battle for content and what is available. We're seeing, as we engage with the different airlines and also hotel and car providers, that they're looking for different things and they have different strategies. So we're trying to normalise that as much as we can and bring that across. And the factor for most travel agencies out there or third parties connecting out there is to understand what is their requirements for them and their customer, and how does that map to the landscape and what is being provided by those partners. Because direct connect is expensive. It takes time and effort and energy and resources. And so you want to have as few of those as possible. I mean, our entire business model is to direct connect and aggregate. So we know it's expensive. We know it's difficult. So you really have to balance that in terms of what is the value that brings to you versus the cost and the cost of managing and acquiring that content. So certainly when you're talking about the GDS providers, content is really one of the key levers to look at in terms of what decision factors in terms of how you do that. And you have to stay on top of it because it is changing all the time.
And for us, we see that we can get certain NDC features through our GDS providers. So you can still get some of the best of both worlds by going GDS. And if you're going to go exclusively NDC, I don't think anybody can operate exclusively NDC right now because it's still in its infancy. And go ahead, you answer the question too, please, about selecting GDS.
Yeah, I think, when you look at a GDS provider and different travel businesses have different ways of evaluating GDS providers. But I think there's a combination of three things that are really, really important that most people tend to focus on. One, of course, is commercial. So let's put that aside because that's something that would be common across most GDSs, that you would have some commercial expectations for the work that you do for the airline industry or the hotels that you're distributing. The second element is around the whole evolution of the plan, shop, and book environment, where personalization is becoming critical and very, very important in today's day and age. And as you look at that, you've got to start thinking, what is it that, you're getting in terms of the ability to curate a content that is relevant and comprehensive for the end traveler. And that is something that you have to understand vis-a-vis, one versus the other or the third. While everyone has an ability to deliver or distribute shopping content around retailing, distribution, and fulfillment, but it's the differentiation at the point of sale that makes a big difference when it comes to the travel agency or the TMC requirements. The other piece is around the new revenue streams, right? I mean, historically, everyone's depended on airlines, and I've worked for an airline for a few years, and I understand that airlines focus on reducing distribution costs, and as a result of which, agencies have to look at creating new revenue streams, and therefore, ability to get lodging, ground and sea content through your GDS in a seamless fashion, rather than, as we were discussing earlier, having to integrate it through different APIs, etc., is something that you should look for from your GDS provider, because that will enable you to get lots more revenue for the same traveler if you're cross-selling, not just an air booking, but ancillaries, but hotel rooms, car bookings, etc. All of that together. So I think the way GDS buying will change over time is it will move a lot more from pure content to the solutions that the customer gets at the point of sale and through the technology that you get as a result of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because who can have business if they can't service it, right? I'd like to take your question.
Yeah, so my question is, airlines are increasingly, trying to reduce the distribution costs, as you rightly said, and one of the things that we saw in 2015 in Lufthansa put a Euro 16 charge on as a distribution cost, and now with NDC coming in where they are, offering the content directly. Do you think, GDS is becoming a necessary evil, or is it something that the airlines will will look forward to in terms of distribution of reduction of cost?
Let's go to Martin.
Hi. So Lufthansa is a very specific example. So in their sense, NDC is, if you step back, what is NDC for and what is it about? An NDC is actually a new way of distributing and the connectivity, the plumbing in the industry. And it is designed specifically around third parties and for third parties. So airlines are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in building all of this technology for the third-party channel, for the aggregation channel. So it is designed for us, and what they want to do is sell their product differently to how it was sold today. Now, this technology enables all of that. Now, some airlines have a slightly different agenda, and they're also using it to try to drive some commercial model change and things like that. But on a whole, when you look at the whole industry, they're looking at ways to increase revenues and grow revenues, sell their product differently, compete with low-cost carriers, compete with other new entrants into their sector, and offer more customized, personalized experience for the end traveler. And that's what this technology is enabling, and it's a step change and a way of thinking differently about the industry and a way of thinking differently about the model. As I said, some airlines have a specific commercial objective, but as a mature industry, the value we bring at all points is always going to be squeezed, is always going to be looked at. And we just have to look at all of these things in light of what is the end goal, which is to help sell airline product and sell it differently.
Sandeep?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question, and I think largely we've covered most of the elements of NDC, so I won't repeat it. But from my perspective, you see, the evolution of airlines is now around the better shopping experience that you get, and I think a large part of that was driven with the OTAs coming in and offering you such an amazing shopping experience that airlines felt that this is got to be replicated through the normal distribution channels, and I think that is where this whole concept of NDC was curated. It's basically just an XML format or an XML programming environment where you can provide rich content, a whole range of, earlier we were restricted with the number of fares, the number of classes. Now you have literally an ability to customize the full offer by the airline to the end traveler and back. I think the commercial elements, the airlines are in any case transforming themselves. They are equally under tremendous cost pressure. And that is, I think, while it's happening at the time of NDC, I think it's a totally different discussion. It doesn't have to deal purely with NDC. What NDC does do for the airline, though, is enable you to sell much better. So, and the ability for that to be delivered to the GDS helps the travel agent make sure that, they've got the best content, the best ability to sell ancillaries, and therefore, if they're not earning enough on the seat, they can earn by selling ancillaries of that airline to the end traveler and increase their revenues in that way.
So we are just about out of time, but there's one really important question for travel agencies that we want to hit really carefully. And this is a problem for us as buyers as well as for you as suppliers. We need to know, we need to discuss in this room, is NDC meant to kill the travel agency? Is it meant to kill the travel agency? I would say no, but really, you have better perspectives than I do.
Yeah, I think NDC is supposed to help travel agents going forward. I've worked with an airline, and from my perspective, the way I understand the whole NDC effort, it's a way of making sure that you offer to the end traveler the offer that best suits them. So I'll give you a simple example between me, my son. We're both traveling to the US. I'm old school, I'm very frugal. When I'm traveling on my own, I want to buy the cheapest seat. But when my son was traveling, and this is his first job, and I asked him, how are you traveling to the US? He'd chosen one of the most expensive airlines because he wanted the experience. And secondly, he'd chosen a seat with more leg space. He's taller than me. Now, that is truly an NDC experience, right? I mean, because what's happening there is he's choosing to buy something which suits his lifestyle and his sort of needs, as against a traditional way of buying, which is purely around time of travel, duration of flight, and price. And that is, I think, something which increasingly the travel agencies will use in order to enhance their revenue streams and therefore become a lot more relevant to the airlines.
From my perspective, absolutely not about killing off the travel agency. In fact, airlines are investing hundreds of millions in dollars, as I said, worldwide in enabling this technology for the travel agency and for third parties, because they want to match up their online experience with their third-party distribution experience. It's a technology. I mean, the iPhone is, correct me if I'm wrong, about 11 years old. And how we interact and work now because of that is completely different to how we worked 10, 15 years ago. The old technology we use and is built on was designed and spec'd in the 70s. We need something that's going to take us into the next generation and enable all of that technology for all of that individual shopping and engagement experience. And within that, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for new revenue opportunities, new ways to make money, new business models, and we all have to embrace that. I mean, the technology is not perfect, the strategies are different by the airlines, but it will evolve and it will get there. It's the start of the journey, not the end. And there's a lot of it. I would encourage everybody to engage with this technology as a way to move forward for the future.
And for us, if mine's on now, for us as the corporate buyer, we need you to service our reservations. If you're going to get our content over NDC, we need you to service that. If you're going to get it over GDS, we want you to service that also, because in our corporate lives, we're busy trying to do the business of our corporation. Our job is not to go chasing content and chasing ancillary services and chasing data and integration. We rely on you for that. So we see that the travel agency will become even more crucial with NDC and combination approaches of GDS and NDC, so we can get our data into our expense management tool and understand what we spent and how we need to spend differently and how we need to use your services differently. we've run out of time. So I want to thank our panel because they're so wonderful to work with and so knowledgeable. You can ask them questions afterward if you want the slides, or talk about the calculator to decide NDC versus GDS. Then let me know, because that's something through one of our affiliates. And we're happy you came today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.